Fun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, you forget the rest. Humor pulls the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Steam Fun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Oh, happy Monday. How's your war going so far? If you missed it, I did kind of pop on for a little over an hour on Saturday to talk about the new war, but this morning I've been doing some more looking into that, so we can talk about that some more. And we will. I've got actually two slideshows on that. One is the whole, there's basically three justifications that have been bandied about regarding what allows Trump to act this way. One is Article 2. The second is the War Powers Resolution. And the third one is the authorization for the use of force back in that initiated the Iran or the Iraq Afghanistan wars. And so I want to go over each of those defenses and articulate why they are invalid and how they are invalid. And then I also want to address some some fair criticism against Trump and Biden, or against against Obama and Biden regarding expanding the War Powers Act. But I also want to point out, as I do that it's still not a fair comparison to what Trump is doing right now. Neither Obama nor Biden, man, I cannot talk today. Neither Obama nor Biden, it's all the B's, Bush, Obama, Biden, Bush bombed Obama. Bush and Obama bombed Biden bashfully or something. I don't know. Civilization ended when the handkerchief went away. So anyway, I want to talk about, I got one slideshow about the War Powers Resolution and the Iran conflict, or War Powers and the Iran conflict, and just discussing all of that. Then the other thing that I want to discuss, because it seems like there's a lot of overlap to these two things, but the three different justifications for Trump going to war without authorization all involve a central premise that we are some way acting in self-defense, that there is a imminent danger that Iran presented. Without that there is a trigger in the various defenses they have, but they all make Iran being an imminent threat. And imminent means something. It's eventual threat does not mean anything. So I've got another slideshow that I'm going to go through on that, the Iran strikes and the imminent threat standard. However, before we do that, I wanted to present something to you really quick that I just, if you have not signed up for friend of the program's Resistance newsletter, you should. She does this amazing job every day. She goes through, she encapsulates the different key stories, what's going on, and she links to different Substacks and whatnot that I find this is really helpful to. It's a great, what's the word? They have a word for this kind of thing. But anyway, I highly recommend you subscribe to our newsletter. And the first thing she's got up here that I think is really interesting that I thought is she's got Supreme Court of Gilead. The Supreme Court takes up gun rights cases that could reshape federal drug laws. The U.S. Supreme Court is hearing a major case over whether people who use marijuana or other controlled substances can legally possess firearms, a decision that could redefine how federal gun laws interact with state cannabis legislation. The dispute centers on constitutional rights, public safety rules, and whether the government can restrict gun ownership based on drug use classifications that many states no longer treat as criminal. As Justice's Way, the Second Amendment against federal narcotics laws. The ruling could affect millions of Americans, potentially reshaping gun regulation, cannabis policy, and criminal liability nationwide heading into the 2026 political cycle. And I found this interesting. Hey, how you doing, Brett? You're in early today. So I just wanted to bring this up because I think it brings up interesting discussion about the constitutionality of Hunter Biden's conviction, even though he was pardoned and everything. I'm just interested to see how the Republican argument will go on all this, because if they go the way of protecting guns, then they have to admit that Hunter Biden was railroaded unconstitutionally, which means that they wouldn't be able to complain about Joe Biden pardoning him anymore. So I think that's funny. But, okay. So Odin says it's all downhill from here. It only gets worse by design because stolen intelligence has no consciousness, therefore furthest from God as humanly possible. The only thing depressing about knowing the future and how the world ends is that absolutely nobody cares beyond their love for idiocracy. The clowns on the left and jokers on the right work together to sacrifice Jesus Christ. Okay. Double tap the screen for more viewers. How does what? What? Huh? I'm double tap. That's Peter Hegseth's favorite word. Are you a preacher? Are you talking to Omni? Odin there? Starboy Knight says hi. Unity. Brett says hi. Okay. So there we go. So without further ado, then I just wanted to mention that one thing and also give Kitty a shout out. She's really, she has she's such a friend of the program. I don't deserve her. So anyway, I want to start with the first one, but all your whataboutisms and whatever, the constitutional issues will set to the side for the moment. I will go to those. That's why I wanted to start out just by presenting the fact that I am going through two different slide decks. The topics overlap, but this seemed to be the easiest, cleanest way to separate them. I meant when somebody likes the vertical, they double tap. The algorithm puts it in someone else's feed. I did not know that. I've never actually been on the live feed for live streams. I don't watch live streams myself, which is probably, I don't know if that's bad, but like my whole experience with live streams is doing them, which is why mine probably suck. But anyway, so, oh wait, did you send me this because you wanted me to talk about it? Okay. All right. So let's talk about the, and let's do it this way. The Iran strikes and the imminent threat standard. And so this is their argument. At least it was, and then it wasn't, and then it is. Their argument kind of goes around, but it's kind of become, well, they might someday possibly be a threat. They may not have been a threat yet, but they wanted to be. So I wanted to go through that kind of argument and talk about the equivalent of it, and then discuss exactly what's really going on. Okay, so first they have this self-defense analogy. All right, I want to make this analogous to a self-defense argument. Okay, so let's say you're walking down the street and you see this guy that has blanks in his pocket, you know, like blanks, like the kind they use on sets where it's just, you know, there's just enough to make a noise there, but not enough to kill you or hurt you. And he doesn't even have a gun. He just has blank bullets in his pocket. And so you pull out your gun and you shoot him in self-defense. And people are like, the prosecutors are like, how could you possibly have killed him in self-defense? He just had blank bullets. And you're like, but he could have taken those bullets and taken the gunpowder and like consolidated them into one bullet and then made that one bullet, put it into a gun, and then shot me with it. And then you point out that he had this bullet making shot where he could do that. And then the prosecutor says, you know, but you blew up his bullet making shot a month ago. So he couldn't have even manufactured these bullets the way you're saying. And then the guys, you say, but he had plastic over the windows. He was trying to rebuild his bullet making shot so that he could then remake the bullets, and then he could put all those bullets into a gun, and then shoot me with it. So I was shooting in self-defense. And then they're like, but he had agreed to give you almost all the gunpowder in his bullets, promised to never develop the bullets, and let you come into his machine shop every week to make sure that you weren't developing those bullets, or that he wasn't developing those bullets. And then after that, after he made this offer, you pulled out your gun and shot him in self-defense. And you're like, yep, because he could have been lying and he could have gotten around it, and he could have someday maybe possibly turned all these bullets and put it in a gun, and then he could have shot me with it. That's not self-defense. That's just twisting around trying to find a justification for murder. And that is effectively what we've done here, or what Trump has done. So first of all, let me see if I got some comments. All right, so Brett says, oof, Iran strikes. CENTCOM was speaking professionally, and just a couple of hours ago, you could tell it was Hegseth on the keyboard. It was an emotional frat boy typing. Pete Hegseth, that man makes my slap muscles twitch. Every time he talks, I'm just like, like almost. I don't know if he's worse than Mike Johnson, but he gets my slap muscles twitching bad. Hegseth pulled off somebody. He probably was drunk when he did it too. Wait, let's not forget all the people around the world that guy killed before this, Kelly. Iran has proven they can't be trusted. It's not about Iran, John. I mean, let me put it this way. Any argument like that you have is an argument that Donald Trump, like if you want to justify a war with Iran, you could have done that to Congress, and you could have done that to the UN, and you could have done that before you attacked them. There is no reason that he had to attack that day. All right, to make it constitutional, he's supposed to bring the case to Congress first, and I know where you want to go with that, and that's why I have a whole other slideshow about it. But right now, we're talking about whether Iran was an imminent threat. All right. Right now, Iran was not an imminent threat to the United States or its allies. That's the point. All right. Can you stay on point, John? Please just stay on point. We'll get to your other fake arguments in a minute. Okay, so the blanks. Iran had 60% uranium, and there was this report that they were a week away from having a nuclear weapon, which, would require 90% uranium, and they could have enriched uranium to 90% in 1 week. There's some problems with that argument, okay? Number one, it was never possible to begin with, not realistically. If they maxed all their, do I have another slide on this? I think I am. If they maxed out all their nuclear enriching facilities for a full week at full capacity, going as fast as they could have gotten from 60 to 90%. However, there is a problem with that math, in that there is no possible way that they could do that, because there's this thing called friction. Okay? The laws of physics simply would not allow for that to happen. They would overheat, and then you'd have a big problem on your hands. And that study was done by a right-wing, warmongering think group. It wasn't like the IEIA says that's not realistic, and never was. They were actually, at best, it would have taken like 3 to 6 weeks. And that's provided, one, Iran was trying to, and number two, this is also incredibly important. That study came before we obliterated, and I used Trump's word, obliterated their facilities. So then we're not just looking at the amount of time it would take to go from 60% to 90%. We're talking about the time it would take to rebuild the facilities to get them to the point where they could go from 60% to 90%. And the time frame for that is 1 to 2 years. So this is what I mean when I say all that's why I'm comparing it to a guy that just has blank bullets in his pocket. The blank bullets they have gunpowder, but unless you work with them, unless you develop that gunpowder and consolidate it all into one bullet, it's not enough to be lethal. It's not enough to be a threat. And you can't be an imminent threat if you're not a threat. So yeah, here it is. The 1 week breakout figure assumes friction-free ideal conditions. They just don't exist. Real world physics, you cannot enrich uranium in destroyed centrifuges. That's the other thing. If they obliterated the centrifuges, how is it that they're going to enrich the uranium? So this brings us to the bullet-making shot, destroyed infrastructure. Natanya's enrichment plant was functionally destroyed in June 2025. Fordo, major damage to power systems and centrifuge cascades. Isfahan, I'm butchering these names, I know. Uranium conversion facility heavily damaged. Timeline reconstruction estimated at years, not months. So you can't use the blowing up the enrichment facilities timeline on a post blowing up the enrichment facilities basis. Like, they weren't a week away. And that's just part of it. They weren't a week away from having the capacity to even have a nuclear weapon. All right. Now, the reason I bring up the plastic wrap on the workshop is that they keep trying to make it sound like Iran was, rebuilding these things, and it was only a matter of moments away. But they were barely started, and the what they were doing is things like taking care of tunnels and things like that. They weren't actually working on the uranium. They were defensive, not offensive. Sealing tunnels, attempting to protect remaining assets at Isfahan. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, not rebuilding. So there was no, they weren't getting closer to even getting the enrichment things that they needed to get. So that's why I mean, like the plastic on the workshop, just some plastic wrap. They were no danger. There was no real presence of them becoming a danger. The critical, and then this is the most important part. The day before we attacked them, Iran agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium. They agreed to irreversible down blending of existing 60% stockpile to civilian fuel. They wanted to down blend, unenrich the uranium. They wanted to make it less likely to be used as a war thing. They agreed to full IAEA inspections. And Oman said this was a breakthrough. Peace was within our reach. This deal could have actually been a huge win for Trump, because this is actually more than Obama got. He could have said, see, it was all worth it. I did better than Obama. Art of a deal. Instead, they agreed to it, and then he went and started blowing them up and blowing up schools with children in them. That's what I mean. Like the kid, or like the guy pulls out, like gives you all his bullets, and then you shoot him in self-defense. So the self-defense requires imminent, unavoidable threat. If somebody's pointing a gun at you, you can shoot them in self-defense. If somebody's pointing live nuclear weapons at you, you can carry out a strike. If somebody's actually going to hurt you, you can attack. But to simply attack on a pretext of unrealistic harm, we should have learned that lesson with Iraq, and we didn't. We attacked Iraq on hyped up, exaggerated, hyperbolic claims about nuclear war and weapons of mass destruction that we knew for a fact weren't true. And we knew for a fact they weren't true because UN weapons inspectors had told us for a fact they weren't true. But we still did it. But at least I'll give Bush this much credit. At least he had the decency, with quotation marks around it, to go to Congress and lie about it first. Donald Trump didn't even have the decency to go through the pretext of going to Congress and telling lies. Any realistic standard is Iran couldn't have, it was at least 2 to 4 years away from being any threat at all. And that's not even counting, that's not even factoring in, they had no delivery device. That's just to get the bullets. That's not even counting getting a gun. They didn't have any way of delivering a nuclear weapon anywhere. Now, I'm not factoring that into the timeline because that could be done concurrently with developing the nuclear weapons. So not necessarily like it would have to be 2 to 4 years after that. But 2 to 4 years is actually an accurate timeline. You can't go around shooting people in self-defense because in 2 to 4 years they might attack you. And the fact that there was an active off-ramp already agreed on. They already said, okay, we'll give you exactly what you want. And then we went and bombed them. The next day, we went and bombed them. The strike was a political choice, not a military necessity. End of story. So the reality of the strikes, objective one, to prevent a negotiated settlement that leaves the regime intact. Objective number two, reassert military dominance following diplomatic concessions. Objective three, regime disruption. That's both what Trump and the U.S. and Israel have all said. This was not about any kind of defense. This was about Donald Trump doesn't like Israel, doesn't like Iran. He's still mad about the Obama deal because, can't give the black guy credit for anything. That's what it's all about. It's not about being a threat at all. And that's really, really, really important when you go into the constitutional justifications for the president of the United States declaring war. And that I cannot emphasize that enough. All right, so we got some comments while I was going through that. Okay. See, John commented, when he went off on the press asking him, I couldn't watch the press conference. Okay. Got to go back further. Even the IAEA. It's fun to stay at the IAEA. When he went off on the press asking them questions today, slow the video down with the volume off. You can see the moment controlled rage in his eyes. That's how he acts towards his family. I could not watch the press conference. I was like, now's a good time to watch John Oliver. They have been okay, but John, again, that doesn't mean we had to attack them yesterday. Take that case to Congress, take that case to the UN. Right now, the United States of America, the good old US of A, has started more wars, killed more people in more countries than Iran has in the last 150 years. So maybe the real threat to the world is us. Have you thought about that? They were in the middle of talks and the U.S. didn't even say a word. Just started attacking at 2 a.m. The Cheetos watching hour. Yeah, I guess he wanted something to tweet about. Whatever Netanyahu has on him, it must be really bad. Oh, Netanyahu was on TV today. He was talking about how he and Donald Trump saved the world. But right now, dude, they're not a threat to surrounding countries. And all that, again, dude, keep up. How many times do I need to say it? Take that case to the UN. Take that case to Congress. The only way Donald Trump was legally justified to do what he did is if they were an imminent threat to the United States and its allies. They weren't. There's no reason to think that they were going to attack our neighbors or us if we didn't attack then and there. He should have gone to Congress, period. That entire school was wiped out. I think I've heard it's up to 156 body count. 156 little girls. To cover up for the fact that Donald Trump rapes little girls. I don't think it was for the people. They were taken like a thief in the night. If it went through Congress, it would have been time for civilians to take shelter. Hexeth doesn't believe on ROE. Hexeth doesn't believe in ROE. Hexeth probably believes in BAC or something. Iran has been funding terrorist attacks since. Yeah, then take that case to Congress. Take that case to Congress. Nobody denies Iran is a bad country, but take the case to Congress. They've been doing it since 1989. Why didn't Trump take it to Congress during his first term? Wasn't Trump president for 4 years already? You don't just get to declare war because somebody says they're a bad guy. There are legal ramifications here. Iran has been funding terrorist acts since 1989. Does not a legal justification to go to war unilaterally. not than the Obama administration. That's not even a sentence. Not more than the. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Obama does not matter here. Obama is not part of the conversation. Sorry. Donald Trump declared a unilateral war on another country without going to Congress. That is beyond the Constitution. The only way that he could do that constitutionally was if Iran was an imminent threat. I'm not letting you change the subject here. Have the courage to learn. All right? Instead of you're too dumb to be a lemming if you can't see this. MAGA is the only threat to the world. They can't even enrich medical uranium for medical devices. So there goes nuclear medicine. Yes. And that's why they were fighting for it, right? They have actual non-military reasons to have enriched uranium. We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to what Obama did in a minute. All right? But Obama did not launch a full-scale invasion of Iran. So don't go on with your false equivalences and all your nonsense. We've got your whataboutisms in the next slide. Right now, just admit that that Iran was not a threat to the United States. Can you do that for me, John? Can you join reality? Can you embrace reality for a moment? And can you just acknowledge that Iran was not going to leave us in a nuclear dust pile today if we did not attack on Saturday? Can you admit that? Can you acknowledge that? Can we start from an agreement that we at least discuss reality and then build from there? And the basic reality is Iran was not going to nuke us if we did not attack them on Saturday. Why do they can't say no? Okay, what are you trying to say? If Congress says no, what if not? Are you trying? Is that your serious? If Congress says no, then you can't attack. That's the whole point of the Constitution. That's what the framers were afraid of. That's why Congress has the right to declare war, and why the president has the ability to determine how we carry that out. Congress decides when we fight wars. The president decides how we fight wars. That's the separation of powers of the United States government. That's the way the Constitution works. Right now, what you're literally arguing for is a dictatorship. And you're saying that the Congress, the people of the United States, have no say in whether or not we go to war or not. Hang on a second. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure Obama only had drone strikes in Iran. He did nothing like this. So your whole, yeah, we'll go through all your false equivalences in a minute, buddy. We're not talking about the same thing here. You're talking about, you're comparing somebody finds a quarter in a phone booth and they keep it even though it's not theirs. And you're saying that's stealing just the same as somebody robbing a bank because they're taking something that's not theirs. It's a false equivalence. And we're going to go into that in the next slide. Your little whataboutisms are dumb and they're irrelevant. If Obama and all those other people were wrong to do it, then Trump was wrong to do it. So don't sit there and act like everybody else was wrong to do it, but not Trump. Your whataboutisms used to defend Trump only condemn Trump. Only Congress has the power to declare war. If you want to, all right. So, all right. We're done with your little stupid responses here. When you go into a country, you bomb it, you take out their power, you kidnap their president. That's an act of war. That's an invasion. Who's running Venezuela right now? All right. Anyway, you're becoming a distraction. Distractions get banned. So just keep being a distraction and you'll get banned. I've answered your questions. Now listen to the answers or just go away. All right. I'm open to conversation, but I'm not open to being railroaded by somebody that's not actually honestly interested in the answers. Biden whataboutisms is basically saying, what about George Washington? All right. So if you want to behave and listen, Mr. W bunch of weirdo characters, then listen, but we're not going to have you hijack the program. Those are called emergency war powers. Yes. So yeah, let's go into that. Hey, Skippy, how you doing? 3 F-15s lost in a pointless war in Iran from my former squad. Oh, wow. I looked it up. The replacement cost of those three jets is about $350 million. That's more than the actual documented fraud in Minnesota that Republicans love to complain about. All right. Told you. No more W12. All right. So let's talk about the war powers and the Iran conflict and the Iran conflict. Let's talk about what that actually says. What is the actual Constitution? What is the War Powers Resolution? And what is the Authorization Act? What do those all say? And all of these come back. The reason I'm bringing this out, I'll just before I get into that, just want to emphasize what Brett is saying. The Constitution gives Congress unilaterally, without equivocation, the right to declare war. After World War II, so what happened is in 1801, I think, or 1803, there's these Barnaby Wars, when Tripoli declared war on the United States because they had this canal that they were charging money that you had to use the canal. And they decided to jack up all the rates or whatever, and U.S. merchant ships weren't paying. And so they started attacking these merchant ships. And so then we released a battleship to go there, and we would defend these merchant ships. And we wiped out a bunch of these Tripoli boats. And then without any losses or anything, it was like a blowout. And there was some pressure for Thomas Jefferson, who was president at the time, to go ahead and attack Tripoli, or to attack, to go on the offensive. And he said, no, the Constitution only gives me the power to act offensively. If you want me to attack, Congress has to give me that power. Congress has to authorize an attack. And then Congress authorized an attack, we attack, end of war, end of story. But that was the way the framers wanted things. Tripoli had attacked us. Tripoli had declared war on us. And Thomas Jefferson would still not act offensively without express permission from Congress. And that's the way we operated all the way up through World War II. After World War II, we started getting into this gradual expansion from Ike to Truman to Kennedy to LBJ to Nixon. where each president was gradually expanding the executive powers and trying to like use Article 2 as a pretext to, declare wars. And there would be these police actions like or a training, like the Vietnam started as a training, and then I think Korea was a police action, and there were these words like, if we just don't call it a war, it's not really a war, it's just the president using his Article 2 authority. And so in 1973 they passed something called the War Powers Resolution. And the War Powers Resolution was like meant to stop this nonsense from happening. And they said, okay, and this is the confusing part to a lot of people, and I see it on the news, like even people on the left, there's this confusion. They have the War Powers Resolution upside down. There are cases where there can be a real threat, and you just don't have time to go and get Congress's permission before you do anything. And in those cases, that's what the War Powers Resolution is written for. We'll get into it in a bit. But the War Powers Resolution was meant to prevent this overreach from executive powers gradually taking over Congress's ability to declare war, which is what it's supposed to be. But since then, every single president, except for Carter and to some degree Biden, has gradually expanded in some way the War Powers Resolution to include all kinds of things. And yes, I include Clinton in that, and yes, I include Obama in that, and we'll get into all that in a bit. But nobody has stretched it beyond recognition the way Donald Trump has. So we're going to go through Article 2, we're going to go through the War Powers Resolution, we're going to go through the authorization for war in 2000, and talk about how each of these things they're trying to apply to Iran, the Iran war, and none of them really work because Iran was not an imminent threat. Okay. So let's start. Oh, wait, do we have some comments to go through? All right. Someone please buy MAGA a calendar. But he started it. The friendly fire incident. Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, it was Kuwait and it was a friendly fire incident, but they wouldn't have been there if too many dumb people in Congress that hate America. I agree. They're all Republicans. The Constitution doesn't come with a disclaimer that only the people you agree with that are elected count. Whether you think they're dumb or hate America or whatever is irrelevant. They are elected by the people that voted for them, and the people that voted for them have the exact same rights to a say in our government as you do. Okay, so Article 1, the blank check. We'll start with this one. The claim, inherent commander-in-chief authority to protect national interests. The flaw here is that Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the sole power to declare war. The reality is that this was originally intended to repeal sudden attacks, and that's a quote, and not to initiate offensive strikes. There was no sudden attack. There was no threat of a sudden attack. There was no imminent threat. That's why Article 2 can't apply here. And that's why I bring up the Thomas Jefferson thing. Thomas Jefferson, if if Donald Trump were president, then we would have had a different outcome, right? Like he would not have gone to Congress. But if we're going to talk about the Constitution, the literal people who wrote it, their opinion should matter. And we know what Thomas Jefferson's opinion on this was because of what he did. He went to Congress after Tripoli had declared war on us, after Tripoli had attacked us and we had defended ourselves. He still refused to go on the offensive. Iran didn't declare war on us. Well, you know, some people want to say they declared war on us 40 years ago, as though that matters. Iran didn't attack us. And we still attacked them. Iran wasn't even a threat to attack us. So what about the War Powers Resolution? Let's look at that one. Okay, so what is the claim is that it gives you a 60-day window to allow action without prior consent. That's not what it was intended to do. The flaw is that it says in the War Powers Resolution, which I really wish people would read it and understand it before they talk about it, the WPR mandates consultation in every possible instance before hostilities. All right? There is a disclaimer in there that if it's not possible to have Congress convene first, then you can skip it and do it within 60 days. That's the intent. The intent is not you have up until 60 days after they start to notify Congress. That's the way that it has been abused and used and abused and used. And I'm not just blaming Trump for that, but Trump has escalated things to a way that nobody else. There has never been an instance like this, an abuse like this, a full-scale attack with the intent of overthrowing another government. Well, maybe you could count Panama on that, but not on the scope, not on the scale of military force that we're using. And a lot of people criticize Bush for Panama too. It's not like everybody's okay with that. And with Bush, I think that Panama had officially declared war on us, but first, and he had used that as an excuse. But I don't agree with the Panama War either. And you know, I'm not trying to justify what Bush did. I'm just saying that that was the quarter in the phone booth, and this is a bank robbery. The reality is notification after the fact is not consultation. The 60-day clock was never meant as a free pass for planned assassinations. I mean, that's just a bastardization and a reversal of the intent. The War Powers Resolution was not legislation that meant it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. That's not what it's supposed to be about. It was only in these emergency situations. That's why in every possible instance before hostilities, was it possible that we could have notified Congress first without being attacked? And yes, we do know that because they weren't an imminent threat. There was no threat there. There was never a threat. The fact there was never a threat makes the War Powers Resolution moot to this entire conversation. So War Powers Resolution only applies if there was a threat. Okay. Your comment, but how can you approve your comment? I wish I knew. Can you see if you can help Brett's comment get approved, Kitty? I can't do it without leaving the site. All right, so next thing, the zombie AUMFs, the authorization for the use of military force. Back in 2001 and 2002, there were the authorizations which applied to the Iraq and Afghanistan, and particularly to the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda. And that was the resolution, the AUMF was authorized military force to go after Al Qaeda and the Taliban. Iran has nothing to do with 9/11. It has nothing to do with 9/11. Yeah, you can say they were terrorist attacks that they sponsored and blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't justify war. Maybe it will justify war, but it doesn't justify bypassing Congress. Anytime you think that there's this argument that, Iran, like we should have gone to war with Iran. You can have that argument, but you have to have it in Congress. Why can't you have it in Congress? The only time you can bypass having it in Congress is if there's not time to. And there certainly was time to. I mean, if you really wanted to, be honest about it, which, of course, nobody's ever going to accuse the Trump administration of wanting to be honest about anything. But they could have used it as a fake pretext, right? Or as a pretext to help the negotiations with Iran. Like if they had gone to Congress and gotten a conditional authorization, that would have, turned up the gas on Iran. Like they would have felt that heat. They would have been like, we have to, do this, or else we're could have helped the negotiations to go to Congress first. It actually could have enabled us to get a better peace treaty with Iran to go to Congress first. But he didn't go to Congress at all. He had time. He was president for 14 months. Well, 13 months. Why couldn't he have gone to Congress? I think it got taken at a YouTube level. Yes, Brett from Seymour Johnson Air Base. It did mine also. Wow. YouTube's being a meanie. Like I wonder if it'll accept my comments. Or provided the medical care, but no Hexeth wanted to do the high fives. Oh yeah, Hexeth. Goodness gracious. Did you hear his comment? Iran started this war, or we didn't start this war, they did? Like, no, we started it. No, we started it, Pete. I don't know how drunk you were to get to the point where you thought that was a reasonable statement, but you were pretty stinking drunk if you think that's true. In 6 months, he'll have a new enemy, and suddenly Magaba will be saying they've been a problem. Has anybody else noticed? Like, I keep waiting. Has anybody else noticed that since we took over Venezuela, not a damn word about cartels anywhere? We have not discussed cartels. Cartels, all of a sudden, nobody cares. Don't need to worry about the boats on the Caribbean anymore. All of a sudden, fentanyl? What's fentanyl? Never heard of it. Does she have a sister? I mean, does no discussion at all about cartels anymore. So you're right. Iran, in 4 months, it'll be some other country. Maybe it'll be Greenland or Canada. I haven't touched the filter at all. I think I have it on just the standard filter. So I don't know what's going on with that. All right, so let's go back to this. So so what did the okay, let me first do that. Is this channel shadow banned? Probably. Seems like I get shadow banned a lot. They don't like. All right. Twitter, it'll be weird. It's like I'll get shadow banned, and it's like I can tell when I get shadow banned, because it's like all of a sudden my impressions will drop to like 10%. All right, so see, like you think that's cute and funny, don't you? Like you think that just going around and conquering other countries is cute. Of course if we invaded Greenland, I would be upset. And the thing is, you would have been upset if it had been Biden. Not like Biden would even consider it. But you are just so entrenched in MAGA-ness that you can't even look at invading Greenland and say, gee, maybe that's wrong. Is it what are you like cheering the 156 little girls that were killed in Iran too, John? Do you have a soul at all? All right, so the authorization for the use of military force was basically to just get these two terrorist groups, which, by the way, remember, don't forget, Trump pardoned a bunch of them and let them out of prison. The reality is using a 20-year-old laws for new enemies is a legal stretch that ignores original legislative intent. All right, so now we're going to get into the whole what about Obama? What about Biden? What about Bush? This is the number of airstrikes by president that were extra, outside of the war theater. Drone strikes. Bush had 57 drone strikes, but in fairness, drones were fairly new. Bush bombed the crap out of Iraq before that. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis are dead because of Bush. Let's not pretend that he was because he didn't kill people with drones, he didn't kill people. And then just later, they weren't really a thing yet. They became a thing under Obama while Obama was president. It's not so much like Obama loosened up the regulations on drones and started like using it to attack everybody. It's just that the technology had advanced to that point when Obama became president. And you see things like, Obama escalated drone strikes by 10 times, which isn't a fair way of framing it. But I'll talk about Obama more in a minute. I just want to point out Trump, that 2,243 number, that was just during the first 2 years. He stopped disclosing it after that. And then Biden, 494 his entire 4 years. Obama was 542 over 8 years. So in 12 years combined, they had less than 1,000. Trump has that in his first term. He has more than double that. In the first year of his second term, he's already, if you include Iran, he's probably passed all the strikes of Obama and Biden combined. So this is when I talk about scope, not just type, but scope, not just likeness, but scope. And a lot of times you'll see these whataboutisms are involved in, well, Obama did the same thing or Biden did the same thing, but they didn't do the same thing on the same scale. And scale matters too. If you take a quarter out of a phone book, you can say, a phone booth, if people still know what phone booths are. But if you find a quarter on the ground and you pick it up, that's not your quarter, technically, unless you say finders keepers or whatever. But you know what I mean? That's stealing, but it's not in the same scope. It's not on the same level as robbing a bank. If you go to the grocery store and you do the self-checkout thing, I've done this before, and you get to your car and you load everything up, and then you realize that you forgot to ring up a jar of mayonnaise that's $1.12, and you say, it's just not worth it to go back in there. You stole the mayonnaise, technically, but you didn't rob the HEB. And what a lot of MAGA whataboutisms come down to, trying to blame you for robbing the HEB when all you did was accidentally steal a jar of mayonnaise. And that's not to say that you should go around stealing jars of mayonnaise, or it's just making it clear these things are not equivalent. And that's what MAGAs love to do with these whataboutisms, is create false equivalences. And that's why I show you the difference, the scope, and how many of these drone strikes they're doing. Obama never did a full-scale invasion of another country from the air to destroy, to kill the leader and the other leader without talking to Congress or the UN. Obama never did that. Closest he came to was to Libya, and that was at least in part of an international effort. And at least he talked to Congress first. Congress did a weird equivocation thing and said, no, but here's the money for it. So, like, it's not the same thing. Let's stop treating these false equivalences as though they have some kind of teeth. So, okay. This is it, actually. The next slide, I forgot. Okay, so they argued Libya wasn't hostile. This is going to go through. This is how some of the reaction, or how some of the presidents have actually stretched the War Powers Resolution. And I don't justify everything Obama's done. He argued that Libya wasn't hostilities because no boots were on the ground. He said, well, it's not really hostilities because the hostilities is the language in the War Powers Resolution, that you can't, start new hostilities. And he said, well, this isn't hostilities because it's all just air bombings. And this was actually just drone strikes and whatnot, right? The difference is he asked for a new AMF and he continued using the old ones when Congress stalled. So I'm not saying that what Obama did was good or that what Obama did was okay. I'm saying what Obama did was entirely different. It was nowhere near the scope of what Trump did. This is the Biden. Biden didn't actually stretch it so much, but he didn't unstretch it. He didn't let it. He continued using the 2002 authorization used for military force. All right, so I feel like I need to slow down and touch on what all this AUMF stuff is. So the AUMF said that you had the ability, the president had the authorization to go after these two terrorist groups specifically. One of the ways Obama stretched it open, and one of the things I disagree with him about, is that he said that what was the name of that? The terrorist organization that was the ones that were decapitating people and stuff. Anyway, there was this other terrorist organization that came up. They used to be part of Al Qaeda, and they were like saying, no, Al Qaeda's not evil enough. We need to be more evil. And so then they started off and became their ISIS. Thank you. When you get this old, you just words leave your brain. ISIS is the one. So anyway, ISIS, and so then the War Powers Resolution doesn't even say associated forces, but then his office of legal counsel said that these were associated forces, which they weren't associated. Actually, ISIS fought Al Qaeda, but nobody cared about reality, and so they just continued doing the same thing. They used that authorization as the authorization. Obama tried to get authorization to go after ISIS, but the but the Republican Congress wouldn't give it to them, not because he was asking for too much, but according to them, he wasn't asking for enough authorization. So they just gave him the money to do it without saying he could do it. And if I feel like Obama, what Obama should have done is said, no, you don't get to have this both ways. If you want to own not going after ISIS, then you have to tell me not to go after ISIS. And if you want me to go after ISIS, you have to tell me to go after ISIS. You can't, tacitly sit by and allow me to go after ISIS and then blame me for going after ISIS, which is what they wanted to do. They wanted to sit there and have Obama go after ISIS and then say that he wasn't doing enough to stop ISIS, even though they weren't giving him the authority to go after ISIS. So, anyway, wanted to clarify that. Then what happened is Trump further expanded that by going into all these other countries. Any terrorist, anybody he claimed was a terrorist anywhere near there, he would say that's a country. This is an author. This is the 2001, 2002 AUMF. It's all covered, and he kept expanding it more and more to more and more countries. Biden came along. Biden did not extend it to new countries, but he didn't say, you know what, this this doesn't apply anymore. And that's really what he should have done. He should have said, look, Taliban's gone. Afghanistan is gone. We can't keep using this in perpetuity. This authorization for use of military force no longer applies. If you want me to go after these places, Congress, you have to tell me to go after these places. You have to give me a new authorization for military force. And so I fault Biden for that. I think every president has needed, with Biden, with Obama, with Trump, with Bush, went way beyond what he was supposed to do. Clinton, a little bit, but not as bad. The only president that really hasn't tried to stretch executive powers when it comes to the military is Carter. Got some comments. He wouldn't even be upset if Biden did it. He would be upset if Trump said Biden did it. That's true. I don't think that, given his illness and progressing dementia, he won't have a 2027. Does this mean he'll have to go back to give? Oh, you're talking about the peace prize? Yeah, I asked Grok today. I was like, do you think this helps or hurts Trump's case for the peace prize? And then Grok gave me this really long, serious answer saying, no, I think this probably hurts it. And then I told him, Grok, that was a joke. And he's like, oh, LOL. Anyway, FIFA Peace Prize. I give it a month, if that, and it will be over. Okay, but why? What will make it over, John? And is it okay then? Is it okay to just, go around conquering other countries as long as you do it in less than a month? Do you think it'll be over for the families of those 158 girls who were murdered? Do you think so, John? And notice how you won't acknowledge that. How about the 4 military men who gave their lives in service to their country so that Donald Trump could cover up the fact he rapes little girls? How about that? Will it be over for their families? 9 years since Obama. You would think so, right? Oh, I got to read these all the way through because people download the podcast. 9 years since Obama. Let's talk about the pedo in charge. Maybe Trump figured he wasn't going to get the peace prize, so figured, what the hell, let's roll. Yeah, that's a good reason to start a war, because you're not getting a peace prize. So basically, he was just doing it for the... Yes, thank you, Brett. And he didn't really care. That's even worse. If the only reason you're not going to war with people is because you hope to win a peace prize, then, oh, Kitty in our private messenger was telling me every terrorist group that exists. And she got it right the first time, but I didn't see it. Saddam Hussein did the same thing. He burned the Kuwaiti oil fields because he couldn't have them, caused a permanent ecological disaster, and we all know how that ended. And it's not like anybody was saying Saddam Hussein was a good guy either. But he wasn't, he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. 10 minutes ago, 6 U.S. servicemen have been killed in action. What was it? How many was it in Afghanistan that were killed in the pullout, in the withdrawal? Was it 8 or 11? I forget. What are the Iranian people free? How are they free? How will you know when they're free? What does free mean? Right now, there's the same government is running. Guy is dead, but we don't know what's going to replace him, whether they're going to be better or worse. That's part of the problem with all of this, is that there's just no thought that went into what happens next. That's why when people say it's going to be over in 4 weeks, what does over mean? Define over. What are our goals? What is the objective? How do we know when, like, where's the finish line? And he says 4 to 5 weeks, but it could be longer. Right now, we're going to be running Venezuela indefinitely. Does Trump just want to be called the supreme leader? Is he going to name himself supreme leader of Iran? Do you believe radical Muslim countries with large oil reserves chanting death to America should have nuclear weapons? Do you believe they do? That's not the discussion, Robert. The discussion is, did they have it? If they were getting nuclear weapons and threatening us with them, then they would be a threat. But the problem with your hypothetical question, Robert, is that it's purely hypothetical. And you don't get to start wars according to the Constitution based on a hypothetical question that the answer is no. They do not have nuclear weapons. I wonder what you're here for. I can never figure it out from that name. Oh, Ice Ice Baby. Yeah, take a hairdryer to him. The Ayatollah can now tell his general, okay. Yeah, he can pop in and say hi to Rush Limbaugh and Charlie Kirk while he's there too. I thought you were just claiming to have completely decimated. Yeah, they were. And that was, you weren't here in the first part, but I was, pointing that out, that they decimated it. And so they were going to go from 60%. They were talking about like they were a week away, which they never were realistically. But after we allegedly obliterated, according to Donald Trump, we obliterated their facilities, which it would have taken years to even rebuild the facilities in order to get the nuclear weapons. And Iran had agreed to downblend the uranium they had. He has a terrible person, but the U.S. has standards and Congress has to approve for. Yeah, notice this is a common theme on MAGA. As long as the person is bad, whatever we do is okay. Have you ever, they've never heard the expression, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Here's a quote for you. I think about this a lot. It's one of the best quotes I've ever heard a politician make. Since Kennedy, anyway. Obama's got some good ones. Clinton had some good ones. But James Tallarico said, I was thinking it was in the whole context of the 10 Commandments debate. And he said, imagine how different America would be if Christians loved their enemies the way, or loved enemies, loved their enemy. I'm sorry. Imagine how much better American would be if Christians loved their enemies the way that Jesus commanded. That's a great quote. That is nothing at all. The MAGAs, they just, as long as he's your enemy, you can kill him. And it doesn't matter if it's legally killing him or illegally killing him or whatever. 156 schoolgirls dead. That's okay. That was the enemy. I don't care. I mean, yeah, the guy was a terrible person. And if you feel like he was terrible enough to go to war over, then go to Congress and get permission to go to war. It's not a question about whether he was a good person or a bad person or deserved to die or didn't deserve to die. It's a question of whether or not one person can unilaterally decide who lives and who dies. And even if you agree with Donald Trump's decision, do you agree with the next person's right to decide who lives and who dies? And the next person after that, and the next person after that. It's not even about this person. It's about the office of the president. Can the president of the United States by himself decide when we go to war? And is that what the framers intended? Those are the questions. Forget, I know this sounds weird. I know this is going to bend your little MAGA brain, John. But the fact is, this isn't even about Iran. This is about Donald Trump and MAGA, and this is about the Constitution. And whether or not Donald Trump can go around just declaring war on whoever he wants because he's doing bad in the polls and because people don't like the fact that he's a little pedo rapist. What if I told you Donald Trump is a bad person? You ever think about that? Good people don't rape children. I thought they were just claiming to have completely, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm glad you scanned Iran for us. I don't know what that means. We destroyed the research enrichment facilities. There was no reason to attack. And there was no reason to destroy the facilities in the first place, but secondly, not in the second place. YouTube always default top comments instead of all comments. Always default to top. Oh. All I know in my StreamYard, what I get is I just get all the comments listed in order. I thought about just ditching StreamYard since almost everything is on YouTube anyway. I don't know. I got about 150 viewers on YouTube, but that's total, not concurrent. I don't need there to be supported. Well, whatever, John, it doesn't matter. This is a question. Like who you personally voted for isn't relevant either. What's relevant here, and I really wish you could stick with me, is whether or not the president of the United States has the power, according to the Constitution, to just go in and attack other countries unilaterally. That's the question. Stick with it, please. I mean, you don't seem like a bad person. You're not coming across to me like an asshole. Like some of the MAGAs on here, they just come in to stir up trouble and kick up dirt and create diversions. You seem like you're trying to have an honest conversation, and I appreciate that. But try to understand, the real issue here is not Bill Clinton. It's not Barack Obama. It's not whether or not somebody's MAGA. It's whether or not Donald Trump has unilateral power, according to the Constitution, to go and just overthrow countries. And he doesn't. That's really, really explicit in the Constitution when they give Congress the power to declare war. And they meant a certain thing, like we've tried to play this word game with war now, and that started under Eisenhower, where we just start coming up with new words for war and saying, well, nobody declared war. According to what the framers understood, what we did in Iran right now is a war. The U.S. should lead by example, not slapping countries like a drunk frat boy. Amen. Cope harder. Yeah. Did your mom have any kids that lived, or? I'm just here because I feel like you are lying to us while also making hard claims. What am I lying about? Challenge me on the facts. Go ahead. What fact have I gotten wrong? What lie have I told? You do this all the time. You oh, well, you're just lying to us. You have never once identified a lie that I have said. You've just called me a liar over and over again. I honestly don't know why I haven't banned you yet. Kind of like Islam overthrew. Yeah, it's not 1979. That's a whole other podcast. Doesn't have anything at all to do with what we're talking about. I understand what you're saying about the rules of getting Congress approval. I guess we'll see how that pans. And I'm really curious too. I'm really curious to see if what is I have actually don't I want to make sure. I don't know if this is one of the, so it's a majority of both chambers to declare war. So in theory, there is enough Republicans to declare war. But let me hang out on this particular conversation, because this is why the framers made it the way they did. Remember, when they wrote the Constitution, the original framing of the Constitution, the representatives were directly elected by the people. They were the only people that were actually directly elected. The Senate was elected by the representatives. Like each state's representatives would elect that state's senators. So I guess where they only had one representative, he got to appoint just two senators, whoever the hell he wanted. I had never thought about that, but we passed an amendment that now we vote. The senators are chosen by popular vote. So, and then the president was elected by the Electoral College. So the only ones that were really directly elected by the people were the House of Representatives, and they were those that they had to go and they had to face the people every 2 years. So things like war, which tend to sometimes be unpopular with the people, they'd have to go and they'd have to defend their vote for war almost immediately. You know, like right now, every member of the House of Representatives is going to have to go and defend their vote for war with elections right around the corner. And according to the latest polling, 27% approve of this war. There's only a 27% approval rating. So you got a lot of Republicans, like right now in the House, they've got like a 1-2 vote, is it? They barely got a majority. They have a majority. If every single Republican voted for war in both chambers, there we could declare war. And I just have to accept it. That's our Constitution. I would just say, okay, he was supposed to get an authorization. He was supposed to get a war declared, and he did. The first time we declared war on somebody, and since World War II, but he did it. Or if they got an authorization for war, then I would say, okay, that's fair. But they'd have to debate that in Congress, and people could call their congressmen and talk about whether or not they wanted that. So that would be the debate. That was the whole point of having Congress declare war, is that there could be a debate. There could be a conversation and not just a unilateral decision. That's why they didn't want a king. And this is all, they literally wrote these things about this is why they did that in the Federalist Papers. There's no ambiguity about why they did that. That's why this is so ridiculous that there would even be this conversation. It's absolutely inarguable what the framers wanted. And you even know that by what the framers that wrote the Constitution, by what Thomas Jefferson did, and refused to attack a country that had declared war on us and had attacked us unless he got congressional approval. All right. So yeah, and now it is up to Congress. But that, my point is, it should have been up to the Congress in the beginning. It should have gone to Congress before he attacked. What he did was illegal because he didn't get Congress's authority. And, you know, the War Powers Resolution says you have up to 60 days, but that's only if there was an actual, it was unavoidable to talk to Congress beforehand. And that's not the case here. Trump could have gone to Congress before he attacked, and he chose not to. Oh, the search engines are free? Brett said search engines are free, and then Kitty laughed. Thanks for the information, says Young Mug. Why now? Oh, is that the real Scaramucci? That would actually be kind of funny. Remember when Scaramucci was a time frame? I get sometimes these comments, like I see a laughy face. Oh, you know what? That's I'm surprised Trump has not called them narco terrorists. Right? Where's the narco terrorists? I'm surprised he hasn't called them a drug cartel. I see there's a few trolls here, but please do not spam or cap out or call their names. Anything else is cool. Okay. So Brett is one of my moderators. So he's just giving you our rules. I agree with your assessment. It's spot on. Wouldn't that be a more empathetic way of thinking versus MAGA's tribal thought, though? MAGA hates and is not capable of empathy for whatever reason. It's religion. I don't want to go. All right, I've told you before, if you haven't watched this, that I spent 15 years as a minister, and this is Cain and Abel is the story of religion. If you know the story of Cain and Abel, Cain murdered his brother because Cain offered the sweat of his brow, right? The result of his labor to God. And his little brother was just kind of a lazy dude that sat around watching sheep, then sacrificed the sheep and he offered that to God. And God accepted Abel's offering and not Cain's, and then Cain murdered Abel because he was jealous. And the reason for that, at least, interpretively, is that Cain, when man fell, God condemned man to work by the curse, to till the ground by the sweat of his brow, right? Like the idea was that this was a punishment, and Abel gave him an offering as the result of that curse. Whereas, well, Cain gave him the result of that curse, the fruit of that curse, if you will, like literal fruit of that curse. Abel, on the other hand, offered a lamb, which was a prefigure of Christ, and it was, God accepted his sacrifice because he saw into God's heart. I'm just talking about the Christian theology of things. You don't have to agree with this. But to get to the larger point, which is that I think is really insightful, is that if you look at things now, Cain's offering was religion. The result of religion. The result of religion is always murder. Religious people love to murder. The more religious you are, the more you embrace murder. And religion is just works. I need to be, like the more you put into doing right and not doing wrong and all of that kind of stuff and just making it this, I'm a better person than you, then that means you're a worse person than me. And eventually it means you deserve to die. The end result of all the laboring to the curse of knowing good from evil is murder. And so what is that? What is my point on all this is just that MAGA, they're just offering God the fruit of their labor in the curse. That is what they are. That's what they do. They end up in their heart is murder because that's what they sow their lives to. That's what their entire lives are groomed to be doing, is just to cultivate the curse. So anyway, that's my theological spin on things. But that's why. I see there's that's why they don't have any empathy. That's why they think empathy is a dirty word. Canceled midterms due to wartime. Yes. And you know who, if you don't follow Mark Elias on Substack, I don't think there is probably anyone more qualified to speak on this than Mark Elias. And Mark Elias has a very, very brilliant Substack today on exactly this issue. He's very concerned that Donald Trump is going to use this war as a pretext to just set aside the elections. People keep trying to conflate, well, you're okay when Ukraine does it. Ukraine has in their constitution that you have to delay elections if there's a war, and the war is in their own country. And there's all kinds of, it's another one of those false equivalences I was talking about. But Donald Trump will probably try and make it a thing. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that Donald Trump can just set aside the elections. Abraham Lincoln didn't set aside the elections in 1964 or in 1864. And if you may be familiar with something that was going on in 1864. You voted for strict enforcement. Don't get all snowflakey when it is applied equally in these channels rules. No spam, no racism, no personal attacks. Thank you. I appreciate the work you and Kitty do here, Brett. I really do. It makes it easier for me. Say democracy, and yeah. They seem to think that they're like, oh, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Well, what do you mean? We re-elect our representatives and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, do you think there's any confusion over what the process actually is? Why is this semantic thing so important to you? And you can technically be a republic without a democracy, but most republics are democracy, and you can be a democracy without being a republic, but most democracies are republic. Almost universally, the terms are semantically the same. There's exceptions and all of that, but there's no real confusion when people say we're a democracy. It's not like people are under some misunderstanding that we go to the ballot and vote for every single procedure that happens. So what do you think is going to happen to Trump not getting Congress approval? That's an interesting question. I really, really want to see what happens. Like, if Congress doesn't approve of it, if Congress says no, what will Trump do? That is a question I do not know, but I will have the popcorn out and I will be eating it while I watch the answer to that, because that is the question nobody else is asking, and that is right now. I think that is the question everybody should be asking. That is a good question, John. I thank you for asking it. Nobody has any bills to enforce the law anymore, or any balls to enforce the law anymore, except if you're poor. Yeah, back to that lack of empathy thing. Okay, Young Mug, you don't get to just do things that are wars and just not call them wars. And the military, like, this is what we've been talking about for the last hour, in case you haven't been here. Well, half an hour. Just the calling it a military action doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The general premise of the Constitution is that the Congress decides when we use the military, and the president decides how we use the military. This idea of military action that doesn't constitute war is a relatively modern invention, starting with Eisenhower, checked by the War Powers Resolution, and now expanded by every president since. But even by the loosest definition of the War Powers Resolution, this does not fall into that, because the president had the ability to go to Congress beforehand, number one. Number two, the Congress can still say no, according to the War Powers Resolution. You really need to read the law, or at least go on Grok or whatever your favorite AI is, or like understand what make some effort, any effort at all to actually understand what the law is, instead of just saying stupid things like it's a military action, not a declaration of war. That, like, by your logic, there's no point in having declarations of war if the president can just go and war with other countries whenever he wants, as long as he doesn't call it a war. What's the difference, Young Mug, between what Trump did in a war? That Congress didn't declare it? Then why have that in the Constitution that Congress declares war, if it doesn't matter what Congress says? And there's also that Trump already called it a war himself. Brett says that's misinformation. Truth Social and his video said declaring war, and it's irrelevant to whether it's called a war or not. I don't know if, okay, I don't know. I just want Kelly to say we are going to impeach Trump for this. I don't know if we're going to impeach Trump for this. Right now, there's not even a Democratic. I don't think that the Republicans in Congress would impeach him over it. But can I ask you, should Congress impeach Trump for it? Is insisting on carrying out a war that Congress said no to, is that an impeachable offense? Can I return the question to you instead of will they? Do you think they should, or do you think that the president, do you just not believe in the Constitution and the balance of powers anymore? Will the World Cup take the Peace Prize? Take back that Peace Prize? Probably not. They'll probably give him another one. Peace through war. Impeachment won't do anything. He'll still be in office. That's true. Even if they impeach him, J.D. Vance will just be his puppet. Why do you love evil tyrants? Why? I didn't vote for Donald Trump. He's already been impeached. I have 9 views. Okay. So, you defend criminals and tyrants. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. to impeach again. Do you think more viewers you have, the more correct you are? I mean, I know that I don't have 9 viewers because just for whatever it's worth, not like I care about these things, but it's showing I have 12 live viewers right now. So 12 is a bigger number than 9, and that's just the concurrent ones. Oh, wait here. All right, so yeah, I've had about 600 on the YouTube one, and then another 169 on X, and then whatever Facebook has. So yeah, I think you're about 1,000 off there. Brett Wood just used for fancy Google contraption. Okay, let's. Okay, so let me just share this with you, Mr. Young Mug. Yes, in an 8-minute video posted on Truth Social, Trump said that operations often result in casualties, stating that this often happens in war. He warned of potential American casualties in what he described as a war in his announcement about military strikes as now. Okay. Against Iran. So it's just in that often happens in war. So that he has called it a war. And I'm pretty sure, I think there was something else. But again, the question is not, I think that there's the whether or not he has used the word war is a secondary issue. When Congress, or when the framers wrote the Constitution, they meant certain things by war. So changing the definition of war does not change the Constitution. You don't get to amend the Constitution by semantics. Sorry. Well, I believe canceling the election would be the final straw for a lot of folks. What are they going to do? Vote against him? It would be interesting to see what happened if he tried. I mean, it would be horrifying, but it would also be interesting from an intellectual perspective. A democracy by any other name is still a democracy, and a war by any other name is still a war. They might be right next to the revealing Epstein files. Yeah. Which is, it's interesting how they're presenting. Well, it's a war, but it's not a war. And it's like they're a threat, but they're not a threat. So there's, like, one, they have not addressed why. They still have not clearly articulated a legal reason for us to be there right now. Number one. Number two, they have not clearly defined what victory means or what win will mean. Like, when is it over? That is just two things that I find incredibly infuriating. Like, we don't even know what the end will be, like what will constitute the end. Like, it'll be over in 4 to 5 weeks. What will be over? How will we know when it's over? What is the goal? We don't have even a finish line. Did anything happen to Obama? Oh, what do you mean, did anything happen to Obama? What did Obama do for anything to happen to him? Obama didn't do anything like this. You're saying that as though Obama had done something comparable. Obama asked for authorization of force, and they funded him. We've already covered that. I'm going to let you get a retraction button for your forehead. You tub stuff and then retract it. Happy No New. Yes. And this is, I was thinking about this weekend because, you know, gas prices are already starting to spike. And like they're up like a dime already. And they'll probably go up a lot more real fast. But they voted for Trump for like 3 reasons, right? No new wars, release the Epstein files, and get inflation under control. And now we've got Donald Trump is starting a war and raising gas prices to cover up for the Epstein files. So that kind of seems the opposite. Why would he be impeached? What did Obama do that was impeachable? I don't know what was a swift mission and not. I don't think that there's anything in the Constitution that says anything about it being not a drawn out war. I don't think there's a timeline in the Constitution, Young Mug. MAGA obfuscates and muddies the conversational waters. They don't believe what they say. It's just about yeah, they do. They're just, that's a great way. Derailing is a great word for this. Because they're not trying to have an honest conversation. They're not trying to get actual answers or, you know, actual clarity. They're not trying to further the conversation. They're trying to dismantle it. Like Young Mug has no actual reason for being here other than to be an obstructionist. It's still going on in Hexas. It could go on for months. Yeah, it's 4 to 5 weeks, maybe longer. Who knows? And without a finish line, how do we even know if we're getting closer? Like, what does that mean? Well, we may have boots on the ground. We may not. At what point does it become a war if it's not a war? Based on the framers' intent when they wrote the Constitution, this is a war. If another country came into the United States, bombed the hell out of several American cities, killed the president, killed the vice president, and told the United States people to, this is your chance to overthrow the country, and encouraged a rebellion, we would consider that an act of war. This is a war. Clip that. The current wars has not been going on for years. No, it has not been going on for years. We went through all of this. If you're going to come late for class, don't make the rest of the students pay for it. We already covered all this. I'm really curious as to see, because and you know, it's like all of these discussions, we have them in the context of Donald Trump, right? Because he's president right now, but every single issue we're talking about is not about Donald Trump. It's about the presidency. Does the presidency have that ability? And the answer is no, number one. And number two, if you want to give the presidency that ability, then you give every president ever that ability. And and you don't want to do that. Even if you trust this guy, you may not trust the next guy. That's why I was concerned about Obama and not telling the Congress, no, if you want me to go after ISIS, you have to give me that authorization. Because I was like, even if you trust this guy, you don't know if you can trust the next guy. And lo and behold, we couldn't trust the next guy. We got the guy that's abusing that authority. And that's why you never give them that authority. That's why Biden should have given back that authority. We already covered this song, T-Bone. You can always go back and watch the rest of the show later. I've covered that in detail. I covered that quite thoroughly. All right, so let's go back to speaking that. See, so this, just so you know, this right here is the Obama whataboutism that I already covered. All right, so then that's the Biden one. So this was the death of the Jefferson Standard, which I talked to you at the beginning that there was, with Tripoli, they attacked a U.S. merchant ship, and the U.S. Marines defended that ship and took out the enemy ships, but they didn't advance. They didn't go on the offensive. And Thomas Jefferson said he would refuse to go on the offensive until he got authorization from Congress. And Congress gave him authorization, and then they went on the offensive. And so this has to be, and this was Tripoli had attacked us. They had declared war on us. And Jefferson still would not attack, would still not go on the offensive until he got authorization from Congress. And none of this 60 days to inform Congress nonsense. None of this police action nonsense. None of these military use of military forces, whatever, all this kind of ways that they cover around it. And as I've said, for those that were not here earlier, almost every president since Roosevelt has abused this in some way, except for Carter. Carter didn't. Give Carter a pass. He actually, promised to not do that and kept from doing that, refrained from doing that. He's the one person that is got a clean bill of health here. And Biden didn't expand it, but he didn't retract it. Everybody else did something to expand it, including Clinton, including Obama, including Bush, and definitely including Trump. So part of the problem with your whataboutisms is I'm not giving excuses to those guys, but I'm not equating what they did with what Trump did either. Nobody did what Trump is doing. You have to consider the scope as well as the offense. It's like I mentioned before. If you go to HEB and you go through the self-checkout and you accidentally forget to, scan the jar of mayonnaise, and you get home and you realize you didn't pay for the mayonnaise, and you're like, I just don't want to drive all the way back to HEB to pay for a jar of mayonnaise. Technically, you stole the jar of mayonnaise, but you didn't rob the HEB. So it's not the same thing. It's same in likeness, but not in scope. And there's a huge difference. And it's dishonest to make them the same thing. The shift is from direct kinetic defense to preventing global policing. That's where we're at now. The United States can just go around, be the police force for the world, it's going to decide who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's allowed to be president or who's not, what governments are legitimate, what governments are not. One person does not have that power. And if you're going to give the president that power, then just tear the Constitution up, because it stopped meaning anything. If maybe someday justifies a strike, the Constitution's war power is dead. Congress must stop stewing and start voting. And just sitting there saying stuff doesn't matter. And I said, Barack Obama should have told them, if you want me to go after ISIS, you have to authorize me to go after ISIS. Let them own it instead of letting them put ISIS on him. Put ISIS on them. And force them to give him authorization to do it. They don't want the power because they don't want to vote yes. And they don't want to vote no. Make them. Call your congressman and say, demand that there be a vote. The United States Constitution does not give the president sole power to go out and start wars under the pretext of they're bad guys. And you can't just look at it in this situation. You can't just go, well, what are you saying, Iran is good? No, I'm saying that Iran doesn't have anything to do with the conversation, actually. Because it's every president always and every country always. This is not just an event. It is a precedent. All right, so done with both of the things. We got some comments. Got some friends of the program coming in. Okay. I believe when I say I didn't want a war, I think it's going to make things much harder for Republicans. I agree. I think we're going to see a landslide. I think that we could be talking about Senator Tallarico or Senator Crockett. Need views, do more dress hauls for Fashion Nova. Yeah, I'd look pretty good in a dress. I'm so proud of myself. You know how I told you I've been like losing weight because I've been eating, like I've cut all processed food out of my diet, including brain drop, including flour. I mill all my own wheat and everything now. And that has been really helpful. So I peaked at about 220 and now I'm down to 158. My Air Force weight was 155. So here, I'll show you a picture that I took. This weekend, I was out doing some shopping and I realized I can tuck in my shirt now. So I tucked in my shirt. For the first time in like 30 years, I was walking around with my shirt tucked in and not looking fat. So I'm proud of me. And I wasn't even trying to lose weight. I just changed my diet and started eating healthier. I got the Clinton depots. Oh, all right. Thanks for stopping by. I have to go soon too. I have to go in a different way. T-Bone was talking spicy on the side and then he'd retract thinking he was slick. Oh, that's kind of fun since I never saw any of the comments. I guess he was a little too slick for his own good. All right, so. Cat, what's with the cats in the boxes? I love my cat. Hi, Dusty. Oh, is that like a hello thing? Dusty is another one of my favorite listeners / viewers. God bless America and President Trump. Okay. Reality just ahead. Good. We're waiting for you to get here. Let me know if you need directions. Obama had the use of force resolution from 2001. that authorized any. Well, he stretched it a little bit, Walter. Like that was technically what he used and what Congress told him to use. But the use of force from 2000 2001 really only named Al Qaeda and the Taliban. Those were the only two terrorist groups that authorized. But then Obama and his OLC said, well, their associated forces count too. And then he counted ISIS as associated forces. But the associated forces, ISIS was really more of a splinter group of Al Qaeda that actually fought Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda and ISIS were enemies. So they weren't really associated forces. And everybody knew that. Everybody knew this was legal maneuvering. And that's kind of how they got the funding without giving him authorization. And that's my issue, is he should have specifically said, no, this is, instead of going along with that, he should have said, no, that's opening up a can of worms we don't need opened. Give me specific authorization. And I think he asked for like 3-year authorization to go specifically after ISIS, and they wouldn't give him that. They're just like, no, just do this. And this was their workaround. And the Congress funded it. So, I mean, in a way, he had congressional approval. It just politically, they didn't want to give it to him, because then they would have given him a win. He wasn't. Donald Trump has not just been waiting for this, asking for this war since the last administration. He had invasion plans for Iran drawn up in his last administration. And we know that because he showed them off to the writer. And we know that because he had it on tape. And, oh, by the way, that was also against the law. God bless you, Brett. Okay, thanks, but don't spam, okay? Brett is so much more patient than me. I don't know why Republicans why Republicans specifically, but almost every conservative power doesn't understand that an outside force attacking directly causes the people to rally against it. And there may be some, like they initially rallied. Some people were happy about Saddam Hussein being tossed out, right? But others attacked. And we don't know that somebody even worse is going to replace the Iranian leadership. I mean, they were a religious group. They were a theocracy, right? So people aren't just going to change their minds about God because Donald Trump came along. Well, MAGA's changed their mind about God because Trump came along, but that Iranians won't necessarily. If they want civil war, they probably just sent the timeline back years. Okay. Donnie needs to poop or get off the pot. If he's going to keep breaking the law, why are we paying Congress? He may as well just burn the Constitution too. I guess, yeah. It's like, at what point does the Constitution just stop mattering to MAGA? They're always like talking about the Constitution. They always talk about the Constitution and they always talk about the Bible, but they never read either one. No CEO who embezzled funds has ever used. Well, the last CEO embezzlement too. Good point. And got away with their crimes. Yes. Now, what about that guy? That guy also murdered people, but he's in jail. Well, but still, Trump is a traitor. Exactly. MAGA knows this, but they love to argue it regardless. Thank you. Appreciate that, pugilist. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad people are happy that I got healthy. I encourage everybody, just like, don't worry about diets so much. I'm actually starting to write a book about it, but like, don't worry about diets. Just worry about eating healthy, like just eating actual food. That's all I did, is I just started eating food. I'm calling my diet the food diet. Just, I don't eat processed food. I don't eat processed flour. I, like less processed is better. I managed to convert to brown rice. Brown rice was a little bit harder to get to, but I just stopped eating processed food. And when you eat like the whole foods, and I don't mean whole flour like the whole bag flour, but I mean I've got a grain mill and I mill my own flour. It's so much more filling. Like I can eat a slice of bread and it'll satisfy. Like that's a good lunch for me. And PBJs are just the best PBJs. Question to anyone who was sentient and old enough to remember the Vietnam War: was there any similarity to now? Feel like there is a cycle every 3 presidents. I'm not old enough. I remember the end of it. I was born in 1967. I hope God blesses everybody. I don't know anything about Vietnam, but I did hear something similar this morning in comparison of a cycle. Something about world control and distractions, etc. Actually, what I'm curious about right now is I want to go through and seems like a lot of people are suddenly experts on the history of Iran. But I don't know that much about the history of Iran, and I think I want to go through and read up on that and see how we got to this point, you know, going back to like before the Carter administration and the I mean, it's like most people, it seems like their understanding of the history of Iran starts with the hostage crisis. But, you know, Iran is actually one of the oldest civilizations in the world. I'm late. Gotta go. Take care. Thanks for joining, Brett. Thanks for moderating. Looks like Donald Trump doesn't need the people's permission. Shocker. I know. Oh, Generations, my longtime enemy between several streams. Oh. Let's not get semantic. So, I have to be careful about video essays out there, not major. That's a good point. You know what I think I'll do? I'll start putting source material in the descriptions. It's just a lot of like videos you can't like leave a clickable source, but I think source material in the description might do that. Yes, discussing whether or not Iran and Persia are the same. You know, like Iran, yes, I know that the Iran was Persia. It's a semantic distinction. The civilization that currently exists in Iran pre-existed the nation called Iran. I know that. You're just being a dick. All right. So anyway, I've been through the slideshows and I'm caught up on the comments. So as you can see, Generations XTV, they have a vibe they bring. Yeah, he's been on here before. Another one that just is not looking to actually have a conversation, just looking to be a dick. So all right, let's end here. Thanks for joining. Appreciate everybody, even you, Generations. Our Generation X. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I don't know what I'll talk about. Hopefully the world will still be intact and Donald Trump won't have blown it up yet.